been 10 recruiting classes in the FBGM era. Out of these 10 classes, one particular class of QBs stands out as one of, if not the worst, quarterback classes in NZCFL history. There were 3 5-star QBs and 5 total quarterbacks in the top 100 of the 2045 class. The highest ranked and most anticipated of the bunch being former number 2 ranked Kentucky native Tristan Marshall. Tristan Marshall was the prototypical big-name quarterback. He stood at 6'4", 218 pounds, was the son of a former Kentucky quarterback, and had a big arm. Marshall accumulated 24 offers out of high school, but eventually settled on Coach Amok and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Marshall was stepping into a crowded quarterback room with 2 top 50 quarterbacks from the 2044 recruiting class, along with junior starter Cock Commander. Predictably, Marshall took a red shirt in 2046, and despite neutral progging in the 2047 offseason and being the quarterback 3 in overall, it was Marshall who Coach Amok named the starter as he went 8-2 and threw 68.5% for 2,857 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 7 picks. 2048 and 2049 for Marshall were back to the bench, as TJ Brooks and 2046 number 15 recruit Jalen Van took the starting spots for those years. In his 2050 redshirt senior year, Marshall was finally given another chance to start, as Jalen Van had yet another bad offseason. Marshall's 2050 stat line was 65% completion, 3,087 yards, 25 touchdowns to 11 picks, en route to a 10-2 season, a Big Ten championship win versus Northwestern, and a playoff appearance that was ended by Northwestern in a rematch from just a week earlier, 24-17. Marshall's college career was just the story of a crowded quarterback room. Marshall didn't get the chances he could have had purely due to the competition around him. The next 2 quarterbacks were both 5-star prospects, and they both decided to head off to Coach Crown's new Stanford regime. Number 13 ranked Xavier McCrory from Texas, and number 22 ranked Eric Bryce from Washington, both decided to take their chances and try their luck, starting for the NZCFL Blue Blood. McCrory was the more raw and unpolished prospect of the two, with a big 6'5", 233-pound frame paired with 81 speed. Bryce was by far the better passer, but was far from athletic. McCrory would take the starting spot out of camp for 2046, as the Cardinal did okay, finishing 8-5 with the T2 Ohio Bowl win over Princeton. McCrory's stats on his freshman campaign were rough: 56.9% completion, 2,461 yards, 14 touchdowns to 12 picks. But he has some rushing upside, carrying the ball 82 times for 454 yards and 5 touchdowns. Going into the pair's sophomore season, both of them hit a regression, but the Stanford team overall got much better. McCrory was once again named the starter, as he had a much better year this time around. McCrory went 11-2 and won the T1 Capital Bowl over Army, as he had a much better 62.3% completion percentage for 3,070 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 8 picks, along with 124 carries for 428 yards and 3 rushing scores. While McCrory hit huge strides in the 2048 offseason, the Stanford team around him took a nosedive, as a majority of the defense and offensive line left. Stanford's 11-2 season fell to just 5-7 to end a disappointing down year. McCrory once again fell back to his freshman ways, throwing 58% completion for 2,162 yards, 12 touchdowns to 11 picks. These woes didn't stop McCrory from declining for the draft early and being selected 26th overall to the Atlanta Falcons though, as 2049 was finally Eric Bryce's chance to shine in his senior year under the new cool regime. Stanford was back up inside the top 25 to begin the preseason, as 2049 was looking bright. But after an upset to Vanderbilt and bottom 10 talent Fresno State, Stanford stumbled into a 5-7 season with yet another missed bowl. Bryce finished his one and only shot with 59.4% completion, 2,992 yards, 15 touchdowns to 9 picks, as he was selected in the 5th round to the Cleveland Browns. Overall, both of these guys had underwhelming careers, with Bryce's time in Palo Alto being shrouded under the shadow of McCrory's 3 underwhelming years. One can only wonder what Eric Bryce would have been capable of if he had been given another shot someplace else. The next pair of quarterbacks I'll talk about is San Diego State's pair of quarterbacks for the 2045 class, in number 34 ranked Connor McAllister from Maryland and number 108 ranked Dominique McDaniel from Texas. McAllister possessed a big arm, and McDaniel was a more raw prospect at 6'5", 239 pounds with 63 speed. Both guys had vision concerns coming out of high school, as scouts worried about their ability to read the defense. Coach Hatch named McDaniel the starting quarterback, as the Aztecs limped their way to a 4-8 season in a mid-pack South Division. McDaniel's year was not great, as he threw a measly 52.9% completion for 2,081 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 12 picks. Going into 2047, Connor McAllister was named the starter, as the new coaching staff was not going to be loyal to McDaniel. McAllister and the Aztecs had a better season than the last, finishing 7-6 with a win in the T3 Golf Bowl over San Jose State. McAllister finished with a 55.6% completion percentage, 2,119 yards, 18 touchdowns to 9 picks. Both quarterbacks had a subpar first season, but the team around them was only getting better, on top of grabbing former NC State coach Colt to lead them. McAllister would get the start once again, as San Diego State went 10-2 and made the playoffs, where they upset number 1 USC. McAllister had a good year, throwing 62.6%, 2,822 yards, 26 touchdowns to 10 picks. McDaniel eventually transferred to Washington for his senior year, as now it was solely McAllister's job in San Diego. McAllister's Aztecs fell back down to 5-7, but they still made a bowl where they won over Colorado. McAllister regressed to a 59.6 completion percentage, 2,865 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 13 picks. Meanwhile, Dominique McDaniel was named Coach Av's starter for the 2049 season over sophomore 5-star quarterback James Tran. McDaniel was having a good 5-3 start to his senior campaign, but re-aggravated plantar fasciitis put McDaniel down for the year. McDaniel's 8-game stat line was a 61.6 completion percentage, 2,041 yards, 15 touchdowns to 10 picks. Both of them declared for the 2049 NZCFL draft, where McAllister was taken in the 3rd by LA, and McDaniel went in the 4th to Carolina. Both of these guys were very underwhelming, as they both never had a really eye-popping season on the stat sheet, and outside of one playoff appearance, they didn't really win a lot of games. The last pair of quarterbacks I'll talk about is UAB's pair of quarterbacks, in number 80 ranked Marquise Tate from Alabama, and number 107 ranked Chase Pollock from Florida. Both quarterbacks had big, booming arms, but were undersized, hindering their ability to read the field effectively. Now, I'm just going to skip all the exposition and season detail for the next 3 seasons. Tate and Pollock never played a snap from 2046 to 2048, as they had to sit and wait their turn behind a senior in Min Frey and number 6 ranked 2046 quarterback Anthony Johnson for 2 seasons. 2049 was finally the chance both men were waiting for. Coach Ball never used a redshirt on the two, so whoever won the job would be playing on their only chance they had at starting. Both guys progged into a 52 overall, but it was the hometown product in Marquise Tate that got the start for 2049. Tate had great weapons to play with, but ultimately, the defense let UAB down in the SEC, as the Blazers went 7-6 and lost their T2 Bowl versus Washington. Tate ended up only playing 10 games as he fell victim to patella tendonitis. Tate threw 65.7% completion, 2,803 yards, 23 touchdowns to 12 picks. Since Tate went down, Chase Pollock got to play in the only games of his career as he balled out, throwing 84.5% for 697 yards and 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. Both these guys decided to wait around their entire careers, and as a result, never got to show their true potential as hyped up top quarterback prospects. You can only wonder where they would be if they decided to go somewhere that could actually play more than a season. So far, it hasn't looked great for any of the top 7 quarterbacks of this class, but the next guy on the list has a better career than all of the top 7. Aziz Lloyd was the number 8 quarterback in the 2045 class, and the 109th ranked player in the nation overall. Lloyd's career path was on the trajectory to be just like the others, as he sat behind 2043 4-star Brandon Grant for 2 seasons. But in 2048, Lloyd got his chance to shine, and he took it. Lloyd had a good team around him as the Cavs went 10-4 with an ACC title and a T1 Capital Bowl win over RPI. Lloyd finished with 65.8%, 2,550 yards, 23 touchdowns to 7 picks, as Lloyd had a great debut junior year. But with 1 season left, could he lead Virginia to the promised land as the Cavs maintained a similar talent level as 2048? Lloyd proved once again that he was the man, leading UVA to another ACC championship and the playoffs at 12-1, though they lost round 1 to Alabama. Lloyd shined as he threw for 71.7% completion, 3,731 yards, 35 touchdowns to 6 picks, en route to winning the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award for Best Senior Quarterback. While Lloyd's career stats weren't as good as Connor McAllister or Xavier McCrory, Lloyd showed in his 2 years as starter at Virginia that he was a winner, as he ended up being selected in the 6th round by the Packers. Brian Bubis, the number 112 ranked prospect from Florida, career clipboard holder at Georgia as he never played and peaked as a 48 overall in his redshirt junior year. Kevin Shackelford, number 138 ranked from Ohio, sat behind future Tennessee Titan Jamin King for 3 years before getting his shot his senior year. He led Oregon to an 8-5 season and a Tier 3 bowl win, as he was selected in the third round by Dallas in 2049. Scott Gordon, the number 146 ranked prospect from Georgia. He was the second career clipboard holder of Georgia's class, as he peaked as a 50 overall in 2049. Deontay Cannon, the number 147th ranked prospect from California. He was a 5-year benchwarmer at Nebraska, as he peaked at just a 45 overall. Andrew McLaughlin, the number 153 ranked player from Texas. He committed to Wake Forest and started freshman year, where he had a decent outing on an 8-5 campaign with a loss in the Gulf Bowl. McLaughlin would be cut after the season and land in Tempe, Arizona to start for the Sun Devils. McLaughlin would get the start, but would regress and go 4-8, as he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the country. He would never start a single game again. Alex Cross, the number 209 ranked prospect from Texas. He committed to Arkansas and was pretty good, as he won the Freshman of the Year award, and he used this new leverage to transfer from Arkansas to LSU, where he rode the bench for 2 years, got cut, and went to Montana, only to sit behind another LSU cut from the 2045 class, number 784 Andrew Peterson, for the rest of his career. Anthony Williams, the number 231 ranked prospect from Florida. He committed to Alabama, where he redshirted and got cut after the redshirt year. He was signed by UCLA in 2047 CPR, where he rode the bench until his redshirt senior year. He led UCLA to a 10-4 season with a Pac-12 championship and a Cascadia Bowl win versus Buffalo in 2050. Kareem Parker, the number 239th ranked prospect from Hawaii, Stanford's third quarterback of the class, as he rode the bench for 4 seasons before getting his chance in 2050 in a 9-5 campaign and a Pac-North championship. He was selected in the third round by the Rams. Shane Gamble, the number 250 ranked prospect from North Carolina. He committed to USC, where he never saw the field once. Out of 17 top 250 ranked quarterbacks, only 6 of them played multiple seasons, with just Xavier McCrory playing more than 2. Connor McAllister's 7,806 career passing yards and 62 touchdowns were both the highest amongst the group. With all of these busts in the higher ranks, there were a whopping 3 quarterbacks in the 400 that topped both of McAllister's numbers. We'll start with Georgia State's Lewis Merrill. Merrill was ranked number 428 in this class. His Georgia State career was nothing special, with a 26-25 record, but he passed the ball a lot during his time there. Merrill finished his 4-year career with a 57 completion percentage, 9,658 yards, 69 touchdowns to 51 picks, as Merrill only had the longevity in playing time over the higher ranked guys. And now we'll talk about the best statistical quarterback in the whole class, the number 492 ranked prospect in the country in Tulsa's Evan Johnson. Johnson's first 2 years as a Golden Hurricane were rough, as he went a measly 4-20, but 2048 was his big year, as he led Tulsa to a 9-4 season and a T3 bowl win. That would be Johnson's peak though, as his senior campaign ended 7-6 with a T3 bowl loss. Johnson's final career as a starter was 20-30, but what made him stand out above the rest was his final passing stat line. His 11,728 yards and 84 touchdowns lead the entire class in both categories. Johnson finished his career with the 11th most passing yards in the FBGM era. NC State's Terrell Allen passed away just last year at the age of 25, and he led NC State through its best stretch of their NZCFL history and became their best quarterback ever. Allen was ranked number 421 in the class and accumulated a 35-19 record with 2 Conference USA championships. Allen finished his playing career as NC State's leading passer with a stat line of 60.7% completion, 10,302 yards, 77 touchdowns, and 42 picks. Debatably the best quarterback of the class when achievements, stats, and longevity are combined. With the upper half of this quarterback class being so terrible, there were a couple notable walk-on quarterbacks from this class. Justin Carter was ranked number 747 out of high school. He walked on at New Mexico and waited his turn behind Brad Cook for 2 seasons. In his 2 years as a starter at New Mexico, he led the Lobos to a 22-6 record, 2 Mountain West South titles, and a conference title in 2049, along with the T2 bowl win. Carter was very efficient with the football, as he threw for 6,436 yards, 57 touchdowns, to just 10 picks in his 2 years. Reggie Pilgrim was ranked number 1,086 out of the high school class. He got 0 offers and walked on to Kansas. He sat behind senior Martin Guerra his freshman year and got the nod to start for sophomore year. It didn't look great, as Kansas went 4-8 and Pilgrim had more picks than touchdowns. But Pilgrim hit huge offseason strides, and Kansas thought that he wasn't deserving of a scholarship. So Pilgrim took his talents to the newly unbanned Coach Papa P's Cal team. Pilgrim was instrumental in the revival of a program that won 5 5 games in 3 seasons, as he went 18-8 and went to 2 bowls as Cal's starter. Out of the entirety of the 2045 quarterback class, 8 out of 10 of the top career passers were ranked outside of the top 400, and 3 of them were 1-star recruits. For context, the 2044 recruiting class had no quarterbacks ranked outside of the top 500 in their top 10 passing yards. 2046, 2047, and 2048 all had 1. The 2045 class had less success from the top 500 quarterbacks than the rest of the 2044 to 2048 stretch combined. The 2045 quarterback class had a lot of forgettable names, underrated talents, and overhyped players. I guess you could say all classes possess these traits, but 2045 was strange. A lot of these quarterbacks committed together, so they took up each other's playing time, on top of not getting starting spots until junior or senior year. A lot of these guys hold huge what-ifs and speculations at what could have been different if they decided to commit elsewhere, but that's all history now, as 2045 will go down as the worst quarterback class in NZCFL history.